to our next speaker a bit. Okay, for my next talk. I want to talk about creating accessible presentations with ltx-talk. So we're trying to make things accessible. In the previous talk, I was saying that Beamer needs to be replaced by ltx-talk, and that'll come later. We are now at later. Okay, same document metadata. There's one new line about about frame titles being H1. Ally again complains that headings must begin at level 1. By default, ltx-talk, the titles are H4s, not H1s. So this changes things to make them H1. And then you are good to go according to Ally. According to the standard, you never needed to do this, but oh well. Let's see, document class ltx-talk. Okay, we need to compile with ltx to make sure things are compatible. We get 3 colors defined out of the box: alert, example, and structure that are red, green, and blue, slightly darker than that. We do want to think of this as it is a replacement for Beamer, so a lot of the Beamer ideas do carry over. For right now, if you are familiar with Beamer's idea of a fragile frame, instead of creating a frame environment, if you have fragile text, so where you've tried to change cat codes, you would want to do a frame star, and then you are fine. And so we want to think of this as a tagged PDF with overlays. And if you are not familiar with Beamer, the idea of overlays is that we have our command and then we'll put angle brackets after the command, and that the argument of that angle bracket has a slide specification, and then if you are on that slide of that frame, that command is active, and otherwise that command is not active, or something along those lines. So a little bit more about overlays. There are a number of commands that start out defined with overlays, several of the color commands, the font commands, right? And the idea is then on those overlay slides, that command is active, otherwise it just does nothing if it's a color, or just kind of leaves the text there if it's not. There's a few, a different overlay command is the alt command, and then alt says, okay, if we are on this slide 2, we will do this action, otherwise we will do this. So because we're on slide 1, not slide 2, we get the secondary action. When we go to slide 2, we do the first action, so the include graphics, and we pick up the image. And then when we leave slide 2, we go back to the not slide 2. Related to that is the temporal command that kind of takes things up a level, and we get a before, a current, and an after. So before slide 4, we have this image. This is H.G. Wells' Time Machine. When we go to slide 4, we get a current time machine, and then afterward we get a futuristic time machine. Let's see. A few more overlay commands, so only, uncover, visible, and invisible, relate to whether you can see whatever that argument is at all. And then item and action environment can take what's called an action specification, and that combines these 4 and then also the alert command, and you can combine them into one specification somehow and get multiple things happening at once if you want to get fancy and confuse yourself. Okay. If you want to define your own overlay command, we're using the xparse syntax, the LT command syntax. So if you want to have a star, we throw in the S. And then what makes this an overlay command is that you can have a lowercase d if you need to supply what is my slide specification, or an uppercase D and then the angle brackets, and then a default if you want to have a default if you don't supply an argument specification. Okay, sectioning. So of the usual sectioning commands, we get section, subsection, and sub-subsection. The others, part, chapter, paragraph, and subparagraph, aren't defined because really they don't quite belong in a talk. I mean, you could say that two talks separated by a minute should be different parts, maybe, but they don't actually, we don't see any output of the commands. They need to be outside of the frames, and so they don't show up within the frames. There's a command I'm forgetting at the moment that does, you can get a sectioning title here. But at the moment, just the section command itself doesn't give us any visible output. What it does is it affects the table of contents and the bookmarks and the tagging. So for example, if I take the sectioning that I've used throughout this document, throw in a table of contents, now I get, here's what my table of contents would look like. The default is just going through subsection, so I've actually increased this to sub-subsection. If I use my table of contents within a section, that section remains and everything else is grayed out. It is very faintly there. I'm not sure if you can see that. Okay, I mentioned before we want to think of this as a tagged PDF with overlays. So because it is a tagged PDF, we do have all of our list environments, itemize, enumerates, description, as in LaTeX. Because we've done the document metadata, we have all the template power, and so we can pass those options to those environments and style them how we wish without needing to pull in extra packages. We pick up an extra key, action spec. So if you are familiar with Beamer, you can say, okay, I want to uncover one item at a time. And if you want to, and we have that ability here, that we can uncover one item at a time. We can also alert that new item. So here's an example of doing that. So on the left, we have the code of this frame. And then on the right, I'm implementing this frame. So here I've said action spec is going to be plus minus to uncover one item at a time. I'm actually not a fan of doing that, so I'm going to jump to the end. Okay. Let's see. But what else? So the description, I've set up the labeling. I've set the width as, well, I look at, okay, the longest label is tagged PDFs, so I'm going to make that my width. And then I set up my labels to use that width, and I left align everything, which means that this description environment, I could take out of this document and just put into a regular article, and it would be perfectly fine. It would work exactly the same. I throw it into ltx-talk, give it an action spec, and we are good to go. Another example, which slides do I want to use? If I were using a screen reader, I would think it somewhat annoying to have 4 slides, one after another, where only one extra item is added. So because of that, by default, the screen reader actually ignores the first 3 slides and just jumps to the last one and reads everything there. So if you have several slides, it's going to just assume that that last one has everything uncovered, and that's the one that should actually be presented to the screen reader. Similarly, if you do a handout mode so that you want to print this for a handout, then that will also just use the final slide of your frame. It will also ignore all of any overlay commands and just assume that, okay, that was only a temporary thing, so we'll just jump to the end. Okay. Another example, I used this in my linear algebra class. I wanted to step through matrix multiplication. So I want to multiply the matrix 1, 2, 4, 5 times -2, 4, 2, -5. If you're forgetting matrix multiplication, I'll step through real quick on this right side. So we multiply the first row and the first column, get dot producted, that gives us a 2. The first row and the second column, dot product is -6. Second row, first column, dot product is 2. Second row, second column, dot product is -9. and there's our answer. Okay, now back to the beginning. What do I want to know? So this, I've put tag slides equals 1 dash. I'll come back to that at the end. The thing to notice is that all of the math is present on all of the slides. I've just changed what's visible or not. Right? So at the very beginning, we have our matrix 1, 2, 4, 5. And I'm using alerts to say, okay, I want to alert the first row on slides 2 and 3, and I want to alert the second row on slides 4 and 5. And then my right matrix, I want to alert the first row on slides 2 and 4, the first column on slides 2 and 4, and the second column on slides 3 and 5. The product matrix, I want to be visible on slides 2 and onward, and then I set up that product matrix is 2, -6, 2, 9, 2, -9, and then I want entries to be uncovered on specific slides, and I alert them when they're uncovered, and then I leave them uncovered but not alerted. And then my final product, let's see, no, then the dot product down below, I have the, let's go back one. I have those vectors present on every slide, and then is it visible or not on slides 2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 4, 3, 5, etc. So everything is present everywhere, which cuts down on how much I need to type over and over and over. And it also allows me to have a somewhat consistent formatting on this right side, that this matrix is not moving around as I change slides.
Isn't that a problem with what you said before? The screen reader jumping at the last slide?
Yes. So the screen. So what slides do the screen readers? Okay. So because I'm stepping through matrix multiplication, I would want someone using a screen reader to have access to all of the slides. And so that was why I put tag slides 1 onward in the very beginning of that frame, and that tells the that tells LTx, okay, I want to tag all of the slides instead of just the last one, and so then it does tag all of them. With handout, again, that just uses the last one, which it also ignores all the overlays, which is a problem because then it means that everything is alerted all the time on those slides, and that's not what we want. So then I would need to actually go through and adjust those slide specifications, and I could say that for the projector, I want this to be alerted here, and if it's a handout, I don't want it to be alerted, and so I could put article to just not have it alerted. So I would need to go back and adjust my specifications, which is a little more work, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, adjusting the header. So we have 2 template instances that we want to focus on for the header. The header template and then the frame title template. The header is setting up what the header in general looks like, the background color, the font, the margins, whether that frame title gets printed, and all that. The font itself of the header comes from the frame title. So in this I have adjusted the background color to be this green color, and I've changed the color, I believe, on the header side to be white. And that gives me the header that I'm using. What do I want to say? This font for the header gets replaced by the font for the frame title, which I didn't realize at first. Okay, if I want to put a logo in the header, so I've got a logo up here that I've been using. So actually the way to approach this is to think about how would I do this in a regular LaTeX document, right? And then the question in a regular LaTeX document is, how do I do something on every single page? Well, if I want to do something on every single page, I want to look at the ship out routine. And so I say, okay, when I ship out in the foreground, I want to put the logo box. And so I create this logo box that has my image, that has my logo, and then I put that on every page. From a tagging point of view, using a save box and a use box only works for this image because it is an artifact. If I were trying to tag that thing, I would need to not use a box. I would just need to actually code, okay, every time I ship out, I need to introduce some code. If you try and Ulrika was telling us yesterday, if you try and use a box that has tagging multiple times, you will have problems. Okay, the footer. So it's another template instance that we're using. The footer itself starts out empty with no elements to show. So we need to put something in it. The things that we can put in there are author, date, institute, title, subtitle, frame number, and total frames. If you want to get that total frames elsewhere, you can ref property last page total frames. So for example, what I'm almost using is the date. I put the author, the title, and then not quite frame number. So what I created a custom, so this is actually a custom frame element down at the bottom, custom footer element down at the bottom. And the idea is, so I wanted to say, like that Beamer idea of frames out of total frames. And so I needed to declare a new instance of the template. So it's footer element, so the my element, this frames of total is what I called it. And then I need to define a command that is at frames of total. And I can either make at letter and go ahead and do that, or if I don't want to do make at, I can expand args, and that does the same thing. And I can define the element and then a short version. I didn't do that for frames of total. Where this comes up is author. So this is actually the short author is Tim Prescott, whereas the longer author was more, and short title is accessible presentations, whereas the longer title was more. So if you want to define two different things, you can define a short version and a regular version, and then this will pick up the short version. Okay, the title page. This also uses templates, but because a title is one-off, you can just give it as custom element, as optional arguments to optional key value arguments. So the key make title has the default, so element order goes title, subtitle, author, institute, and date. And so we can see here's the actual full title, again, and the short title, accessible presentations. Here's the subtitle, and then the full author, institute, and date. Frame style is page style. And then horizontal alignment, whether you want it left, right, or center, and vertical alignment, left, right, or center. This is actually not what I used. So what I used for the title page was title, author, a graphic, title graphic, and then a date, and then a frame style of plain. So that page style, frame style. So the default is talk, which has the default header and footer that we've been seeing. If it's plain or empty, we're used to that as no header, no footer. And then wallpaper, ltx-talk introduces, and that has the same, the header and footer stay, but we don't have any background, any text. Okay, that custom title element. So it's again, I declare an instance of a title page element, and then I define it, and then you can pass it. So I created a title graphic instance, and that was, again, the graphic file, and I used some actual text, University of North Dakota. There's a few more templates running around. The float environment you can tell ltx-talk whether you want your floats aligned to the left, the center, or the right. And then opacity is if you want hidden things to be completely invisible or very slightly visible. You get that option. Let's see, so some future work. I'm probably going to say we in here. By we, I mean not me. Let's see, so tagging. The entire point of this is to be a tagged file. So if there is, tagging we want to make sure is absolutely correct. We want the headings to be tagged correctly. We want the structure to be tagged correctly. That does mean that we're actually looking for people that use this to tell us is H4 for these frame titles, does that work? Does the sectioning not being visible to the audience, does that work? We're aware of what VeraPDF and Ally are telling us. We're more interested in what people feel. And then other things to work on, so frame layout, so headers and footers, and the title, what other customizations do people want? What are they used to from Beamer? What are they wanting to do that they never could before? What would be interesting to do? And that is all.
Questions, anybody?
Very simple one. Is that slide accessible or is this done by hand?
This is, I think, mostly accessible. I believe it passes VeraPDF. There is actually a weirdness if you look at the tagging structure. So I mentioned that sectioning commands only work if you do. Let's see.
I meant the last slide with
the last slide.
ED. I mean, ltx-talk does nicely, except for the questions where nobody knows how to do it correctly. And we need input from ours and people that actually want to use it directly in this form.
That is a raise box, so I'm not sure how that gets tagged.
That's what I thought. It's probably not very accessible. Okay, yeah. No, the ltx-talk does, I think, a good job. Yeah, I mean, ours should tell us, I mean, the slides are on the web, so he should be able to tell us whether they seem to be accessible.
Yeah, I can tell you that the tagging, there's a weirdness to the tagging because, right, for the table of contents to look like this, you have to issue table of contents after a section has occurred, which means that in order for this to have happened, I had to use table of contents before any sectioning occurred, which means that all of these sectioning commands occur after this slide and before this slide. So within my actual document, there's a section. So after that slide, I have like 5 section commands in a row to make this happen, which has bad consequences for the tagging.
Documenting stuff is always
done. My question is probably not really for Tim, perhaps more to Frank and the others. I think I didn't look at the LTX talk yet, but I saw in your slide that you mentioned uncover, only, visible. Did you keep that terminology? I could never tell them apart. Which one does what?
I have trouble telling them apart too. They are intended to be the same as Beamer.
I
So uncover and invisible and hidden. I forget which. One of them, the idea is you can't see it at all. One of them is it's faded out, which means that if opacity is 0, you can't see it at all. But if I were to tweak opacity up to 0.15, 0.5, whatever, then it would be faded in or out. And so then you would have an option of not there or faded away.
It will occupy space.
It will occupy space. Well, the only command, it just throws it away. So you have an option of I don't want to use this at all, or I want to typeset it but not actually, and I want it to take up space but I don't want it to be visible, or I want to typeset it and I want it to be barely visible.
My point is not whether they do different things. I know. It's which one does what.
Yeah.
So, well, to be honest, I don't know either. Anyway, I always look up in the Beamer or now LTX documentation if I really have to do it. And besides this, I try to avoid to do too much with overlays because it's so complicated to find out which one of the commands I need. So keep it simple, then you don't have to look up too much this stuff. Yeah?
Some of them are duplications where people, I guess, asked him, the original Beamer author, to have a different name because they couldn't figure it out. I mean, me personally, I use only sometimes because that's as you said. I mean, it's there to be there only on this particular frame. So for example, when I replaced what do you think with this is what you have to do, same place, then one of them is only on slide 2 and the other one is only on slide 3, and so the text changes. So and the other is uncover, where you simply do it for educational purposes, not to show everything, but show one after another. So the spaces always be used. Those two I can remember, and those I use.
Thank you.
Remaining, you were showing it to the other.